Welcome back to the 6-5 Summit. I'm Shelley Kramer, one of the founding partners of Futurum Research, and on behalf of my team here at Futurum and the team at Moor Insights and Strategy, welcome. We're glad to have you. In this spotlight session, Moor Insights and Strategies' Patrick Moorhead has an opportunity to have a conversation with Poly's new president and CEO, Dave Shull. And their conversation today revolves around unified communications and where the industry is now and where it's headed in the future. 2020, I don't have to tell you, was a huge catalyst for UC platforms, and the growth that started last year shows no signs of slowing. I can't wait to hear what Dave and Patrick have to say.
Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with Moor Insights and Strategy, and we are here at the 6-5 Summit 2021, and I am here with Dave Shull, CEO of Poly. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Pat. It's been a busy, fun week, and look forward to talking to you a little bit more about Poly and all the crazy, exciting stuff on in this industry right now.
Yeah, it's great. I am surrounded by Poly equipment right now. I'm not kidding you. I have 3 cameras looking at me. But for those who aren't familiar about Poly, can you talk about the company and what it does and how it's different?
Well, first of all, you look great. So I hope you're using a good Poly camera, because that's amazing. I mean, it brings out the best, the coloring, your hair, it's all perfect. So that's phenomenal. So
thank you.
Thank you
to your engineers.
Well, thank you. I'll pass it on. They do their best to make us all look good. We started almost 60 years ago, a little bit more than 60 years ago now. We actually celebrated our 60th birthday on May 18th, which is amazing. So the company started off as a headset company. It was called Plantronics at the time. We put the first headset on the moon back in 1969, which is amazing. And sort of the innovation has continued on since then. Now we have a wide swath of pretty amazing, remarkable video and audio gear. So we have headsets, we have phones, we have speaker phones, like what you see behind me. And then we have video devices. And sort of as the world has changed post-pandemic here, or as we hope to come out of the pandemic, thank you, another good piece of gear. We think really the integration of all this amazing communications gear for collaboration, for working together, is where Poly shines. And so 100% of the Fortune 500 use our gear. And so we're super proud of that. And I think it's a testament to the engineering and the innovation over the decades here.
Yeah, and it's funny, a lot of companies are like, 95%, 90% of the Fortune 500. Very rarely do I hear 100%, because typically it's one of your competitors who won't admit to using your gear. But no, I completely love that. And Poly has really come to the forefront of the conversation, given what we've gone through with COVID. I mean, it's been crazy. And Dave, you joined in September of 2020 as CEO, and I was wondering if you could share some highlights for the year.
Yeah, so it's been a transformational year, I think, for everyone. We've talked a lot about how really this digital transformation of the workplace has accelerated tremendously with COVID, and so that's driving demand through the roof. We're all in industries here that are definitely strong double-digit demand, and that's very encouraging. It's a fun time to come in, but it's also challenging. But we've set a record for headset revenue in fiscal Q3. We set a record for video revenue, all-time video revenue for the company in fiscal Q4. We've shipped now 30 million IP phones, which is amazing. So there's just tremendous demand, and I think it's all driven by people saying, okay, every single phone call that I have now going forward, I think is going to have video. And I'm pretty well convinced that post-pandemic, every single conference call is going to have at least one person that's remote. And so what that means is I've got to find a way to take. We have 60 offices around the country, and I've got to find every single one of those conference rooms and make sure that it's enabled for video. Worldwide, there's 50 million conference rooms, and very smart analysts such as yourself estimate that maybe 10% of them are enabled for video. And so that's a remarkable sort of unmet demand that we and some of our wonderful but less able competitors are trying to fill. And I think that's a huge testament to how much work has changed with COVID.
Oh, and I appreciate, Dave, that you're not only talking about it as being different, you brought out an entirely new product line based
Right.
on hybrid, which
Right.
I don't know if you predicted COVID, and then we would all be working hybrid or something different, but it was really impressive, and I'm actually using one of your P15s connected
Yeah.
to my PC.
Yeah. Well, I think full credit has to go to our engineering and product team who saw sort of the changes that were happening in the early days of COVID and said we've got to make sure that we take the best of the decades of experience in corporate conference rooms and say how do we bring that to the consumer. So you're using what you called the P15. I'm using what we call here the P5, which is a tiny little webcam, but that doesn't really do it justice, right? It's because the quality of audio, the quality of video, the ability for the CIO centrally to manage my network and to understand, okay, if I have jitter issues or lighting issues, he can see all that remotely across all of our employees, whether they're working at home or at the office. That's bringing sort of enterprise grade reliability, security capabilities to this new hybrid way of working, so that it doesn't matter if you're in a Starbucks or if you're in the office in a boardroom or you're working from a home apartment, right? All of that same sort of capability that we're used to having in the boardroom is now available in the palm of your hand. So kudos to the
Yeah.
team for bringing that sort of innovation.
Yeah, I like these are my words, not yours, but I think I've referred to it as kid loved and parent approved. So the
I
IT
love
folks, IT folks can manage it, but it has a consumer experience that we've grown to
Right.
love. The
Right.
theme of this year's 6.5 Summit is all about the next roaring 20s and accelerating tech into the next decade. And I'm curious, Dave, what are your customers seeing and saying about this? I know we're not out of it yet, but boy,
Yeah.
the breadcrumbs and every piece of evidence says that we're going into another growth stage.
So we talked a little bit about that just now with the video trend, right? There's a massive trend towards video. I think there's a massive trend towards moving to the cloud, whether it's Teams or Zoom or RingCentral or Google Meet or whatever else. And so there's people are realizing that the traditional sort of on-premises gear that they had is no longer cutting it when it's not clear whether someone's going to be in the home or in the office or in the Starbucks. And so you need to have a cloud-based solution. And so the 400 million PBX phones, I think there's huge demand to see a move away on the audio side as well. So now I think the real technology, roaring 20 technology challenge is sort of what does the future of work look like? And we've gone through an in-depth analysis of all of our employees, and I think 30 to 40% of them will be in the office no more than 3 days a week going forward. That's a massive shift for us. And then there's another 10 to 12% that are probably going to be remote 100% of the time. And so think about the implications for our office space. Think about the implications for where we put the offices, because the team can now live pretty much wherever. And then how do I have the capability to manage people coming into the office, hoteling, coming out of the office, COVID compliance, because at some point there's going to be another variant that we all have to worry about. And so I think when we talk to our CIO customers, they're saying we love the Poly gear, but how does Poly step up the next level and say, okay, we're going to help provide sort of a complete solution that ties all this gear together, sits underneath Microsoft and Zoom and Google and all these other wonderful cloud collaboration platforms, and provide sort of a neutral way to kind of plug in. And for me, that's really the promise for Poly going forward. We're excited about it, but it's the industry is definitely in sort of a massive amount of change right now.
So, how are you guiding them through that future? I mean, you're at the epicenter of all of this, Dave. How do you guide them, hold their hand, provide thought leadership on what they should be doing?
Well, I think part of it is we're living it ourselves. And so our CIOs going out and doing exactly the same analysis of all of these much smaller vendors. And we're evaluating, okay, who do we want to put on top of the Poly OS platform? Who do we want to partner with? Are there some components that we need to build on top of Poly Lens, which is sort of our cross device infrastructure that's already in place? And so I think we have some great building blocks, and we're trying to evaluate what we build, what we partner, maybe at some point what we buy to kind of plug on top of that to make sure that we have a comprehensive solution for our customers. And so getting closer to them, and especially in financial services, healthcare, and government, where the security requirements are so tough, the compliance requirements are off the charts. I think making sure that we understand those usage cases in a lot of detail is really a top priority for both our product teams as well as our sales teams.
There have been multiple Poly announcements lately, and the benefit is that many times I'll come home and I'll have a package from Poly that's related to one of your announcements. I appreciate the ability to review those. Or anything stand out for you? I mean, with so many announcements, any highlights that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I think at the overarching level, on Monday, the 24th, we've been announcing sort of the change to the ticker symbol from PLT to POLY. And that's a big change for us as a company, because it says we did go through a merger between Plantronics and Polycom, but we're now operating as one company under one banner, which is Poly. And so we wanted to make that change very public to our investors as well. And I think it also sort of reflects a new future for the company going forward and sort of this much broader vision. We're not just a gear company, but we really want to provide sort of a complete business solution to our customers. And that in turning 60 on May 18th is also sort of a natural change point for us to say, okay, now's the time to build on 6 decades of innovation, but to make sure that we're executing on a new path going forward. And then for me, it's sort of, okay, what's the vision look like for the future? 3 years from now, how do we have sort of this comprehensive solution? And what are the components that we need to build to make sure that we're starting to deliver on that? And so the first is certainly the gear and the world-class devices. We've announced the version of our Voyager headsets, which is what I think what you held up. Phenomenal quality, right? Wonderful. You can wear it all day. And so for those of us who are constantly on Zoom calls or Teams calls, that's the best quality solution out there. I've got kids, I've got dogs, and it kind of tunes them out, which is great. The next device is to make sure that all of our phones, as people start to go back into the office, especially small and medium businesses, all of our phones have the best DECT capabilities, and it's certified for Zoom or Teams or whatever else. We need to make sure that people are feeling safe when they touch a phone device. And so we've got an exclusive partnership with Microban, which is microbial. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so because I think we're all going to be a little bit uncertain here as we go back, which is okay. I've been vaccinated. I'm wearing a mask some of the time, but I'm washing my hands more than I've ever done in my life. But the more we can do with our devices, I think that's great. So that's certainly the underpinnings. Then the next layer up is Poly Lens and Poly Plus, which is I need a IT management layer so that even if the device is a home-based device, again, we have central sort of, parent approval, as you said, right? It's not just the kids level, but the CIO, the parent in this case, really understands how to manage it. And then on top of that are some of the exciting things for me is the next step is, okay, how do we put a services wrapper around that with Poly Plus? Then how do we start to provide insights, right? How do we use AI and ML tied to the image processing? So, hey, are you engaged or not here? Is Dave engaged or not here? And how do we make sure that we have equality in the conference room? This is probably the biggest topic that is starting to get a little bit of attention, but I think we as an industry really need to embrace from a Roaring 20s point of view, which is everyone in the room and everyone out of the room being treated the same way? Is there truly equality between people in the room and those who aren't? And that's really the vision that we have now for Poly, which is we want to solve that equality problem. And I think it's software, it's AI, ML. There's a whole host of things we can do to make sure that your experience when you're remote anywhere in the world is as good as if you were sitting there. So exciting times for Poly. I'm pumped.
Yeah, Dave, I love that element of equality in a meeting. And there's a certain $100 billion revenue company. I won't name them here, but I talked to them about this whole notion, and they're all in on a hybrid. And one of their big things was exactly as you said. They said, Patrick, we're trying to find a way to give equality to everybody in the meeting. They're typically the person at HQ who's sitting next to the vice president, who's nudging, maybe having a side conversation, versus the person who's not in that room. How do you give them that level of equality? How do you put a focus on sidebars, or maybe you put in a mechanism to not have sidebars or whatever you're best managed by it. But it is fascinating, and this is why one of the things I've appreciated about your strategy and your architecture of your devices is you're actually putting intelligence
Yeah.
in the end. These are not dumb mics or dumb cameras. Now, I turn this special feature off, but on the P15, if I move to the right, it follows me. If I want to stand up and do a whiteboard, it will follow me as I move. The tunneling with audio is, even if somebody were, I can clickety clack on my keyboard, and people cannot hear me when I'm taking notes. And it's that intelligence that some people are adding it into the networking. By the way, it breaks end-to-end encryption. Can't have it. And others are adopting it in the endpoint. And I'm seeing where the trend is going, which is doing as much at the endpoint as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? There's privacy issues, there's bandwidth issues, there's security issues, and the processing capabilities on these devices is robust. A lot of our devices, especially the ones that are meant for the office, run on an Android system. And so the capabilities there to put additional applications as really kind of a platform on top of Poly OS is pretty amazing. And so we've sold many, many thousands now of very, very smart video bars to teachers, because when they're walking around a classroom, I mean, I've got a middle school kid, how do you keep them engaged in the conversation, right? If it's just a broad view that doesn't kind of follow the teacher and it's not just following the teacher, but the audio pickup and the engagement there is critical. And then our amazing engineers have shown me the ability to kind of track the kids and are they engaged or not, right? There's body language cues that you can go off. When you're at a board meeting, is every member of the board really participating when they're remote? And how do you make sure that you kind of catch that hesitation point where someone's saying, hey, I got something I want to say, and it doesn't get buried in the conversation in the room. So we've deployed a lot, which I think is amazing technology. And I keep seeing more and more cutting edge stuff from our teams in terms of what we can do that even goes a step further. So I'm excited to get more and more of this to market. I think it's a huge issue for us worldwide. As we come out of the pandemic, and obviously from Poly, it's an amazing, crazy business opportunity. It's fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the other thing that I've really appreciated is that your equipment's not locked down to a single service provider.
Yeah.
I mean, you're essentially the Swiss Army knife of collaboration. And if it's a top 10 service, you Poly will likely support it. And when it comes to different countries and people who are connecting with each other, that seems really important to me. And I think to your customers, but I think it gets a little lost sometimes in the translation. So, Dave,
No, we historically have always competed on having the best gear, and I think we truly have the best gear, which is why every single one of the Fortune 500 uses us. But I think we're starting to make the transition now to say, hey, we're actually a platform, and we're a platform that when you choose one of our amazing partners like Zoom or Microsoft or RingCentral or whoever else, we will absolutely give you the best possible native experience there. But sometimes, even if you choose one, you may have to make a call on something else during the day, right? And so we enable that as well. And I think a lot of our customers love that because they can make what they think is the best corporate enterprise choice around one of these companies. And we're going to enable them to support whatever else their customers or their partners may have chosen as well. And I think that's a big trend that's going to accelerate over the next couple of years here.
Yeah, I've played around with Poly Lens, and with not my data, with a really large live data and the ability to manage thousands of devices, regardless of what language I'll call it is speaking, and upgrade the firmware. Is pretty awesome. So, Dave, I want to thank you for your time here on the 6.5 Summit, and I think it's awesome to see your growth and the new direction and the new management team that you brought in. I love to watch that, and I am really excited about a little thing, but a big thing like the Poly symbol. Every time I try to look up your stock price or news, I have to read, oh, wait a second, that's not the right ticker. So $POLY coming up in the future. So, Dave, thanks for coming on to the 6.5 Summit, and we hope to see you next year.
Pat, I really appreciate it. And these are exciting times at Poly and for the whole industry. So look forward to talking more. Thank you very much.
Thanks.